Hello, beauties. Welcome to this quick mini masterclass. I'm hoping to keep it. Let's try see if we can go for 15 minutes. I want all these mini masterclasses to be like quick little chunks that you guys can learn that are going to start peeling back the layers around your self-doubt and your imposter syndrome so that we can get you fucking confident, courageous, and believing in yourself so that you can have the life of your dreams, so that you can have a career breakthrough or a business breakthrough because you deserve the money, you deserve the success. If you desire it in the first place, if the desire is in your heart, it means the universe or God has placed that desire in your heart and it's your destiny to fulfill that desire. So this is what all these mini masterclasses are for. I'm going to share my screen quick. Today, we're going to be talking about the neuroscience of self-doubt. So give me 1 second. Alrighty. So the neuroscience behind self-doubt. It's really important to understand this because once you get how your brain works, like this is science, right? Like we can't really argue with science, although I don't know, lately there's been whack shit going on. But if you know, you know. But for the most part, the research that's been done around the brain has just been so amazing. We had no I'm sure you read this in the email, but like we had no 20 years ago, if you told a doctor that that neuroplasticity was a thing, what neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to formulate new neural pathways and like operate in a different way, they would tell you that you were crazy because like 20 years ago in science, in the medical industry, it was like impossible. The brain is the brain, it's your brain the whole life. And now they've found this amazing thing called neuroplasticity, which is the ability to actually develop new neural pathways. And I mean, like meditation, there's been so much research around meditation and how meditation actually allows us to do that. And I'm going to speak a little bit about that in here. But yeah, there's just such cool stuff coming through. So the neuroscience behind self-doubt. So this is your brain. And we're going to talk about mainly the basal ganglia and the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, which is not on here, but I'll show you later. And these two things are really important. The basal ganglia is part of your brain that's responsible for the control of your movements. It's responsible for learning, habit, cognition, and emotion. And then the amygdala is the part of your brain that's responsible for memory, decision-making, and emotional responses. So sometimes you hear about the reptilian brain. The amygdala is part of the reptilian brain. It's like our survival. It's like our survival instinct brain, which is going to become really, really important a little bit later. So the amygdala is the center of your emotional responses, and it helps to activate the fight or flight response when you feel fear. So when you doubt yourself or experience imposter syndrome, the amygdala triggers the flow of stress hormones, similar to if you were being chased by a lion. So we like, I'm sure we've all felt that. I felt that like in moments of like, am I going to do this when we're in front of people, when we have to give a speech or a presentation or present something at work or put ourselves out there. When I was an actress having to audition, that flush of nerves or self-doubt, like all those awful emotions, that is your amygdala responding to your fear of fucking up or not being enough or whatever. So this is a really, really important part of this process. The basal ganglia is responsible for regulating your habits. It's activated by consistent action or not action, right? So both those things. So the times in your life where you take action is where you're going to form that habit in your basal ganglia. And when you don't take action, you form a habit in your basal ganglia. So for instance, people who go to the gym and just like wake up in the morning and get going, like they've just formulated such an amazing habit that when they get up in the morning, they go to the gym. Or you're going to form a habit of like not taking action, right? Not getting out of bed. Scrolling. Can we just talk about phones and how like it's the first thing that we want to grab in the morning, right? Like that's a habit that we formed in the basal ganglia, and it allows for the reinforcement of habits. In addition to this, the basal ganglia, which is responsible for regulating habits, gets activated as you consistently respond by acting or not acting on your intention. Sorry, I'm like leaning over here because actually my little light is right here. Oh dear. On acting or not take, which is what I just said. Let me just try and reposition this little guy. Come on, little guy. Okay. Can you see it? No. Okay. So when you feel self-doubt and allowed to hold you back from taking action, you are actually reinforcing the habit of hesitation. And that becomes really, really important in this work, because I'll get to this later, but we are not always, when we start on this journey, when you're full of self-doubt and when you're full of imposter syndrome and it's really affecting your life, which I assume it has because you've landed up in my world, you've landed up here, you are not actually necessarily gonna feel immediately confident in the beginning. What we're looking for in the beginning is courage. And we can do that a whole bunch of different ways. And I have this amazing next level success program that I take people through, and we build on like self-worth and all this stuff to like get us to be courageous. And then I think just in community in that program, the way we hold each other, we just make each other like, I don't want to say fearless, but courageous. So in the beginning, you need courage because you need that courage to take the action. If you're going to wait around for the confidence to take action or the confidence to get to your next level of success, you're going to be waiting for fucking ever. So you become courageous in the beginning and eventually you become confident because you're like, wow, I take action and things mostly work out. They might not work out sometimes, and that's okay, because fear is like, there's no such thing as failure. It's only feedback, not fear. So the brain and uncertainty and comfort. Your brain does not like uncertainty. We are hardwired for certainty. We are hardwired for predictability. We are actually hardwired for self-doubt. The brain wants to keep this body so safe. And the best way that it does that is by looking at its history and being like, cool, you're alive right now. You're breathing in this exact moment. Let's not do anything different or go do any crazy shit because you're safe right now. So your brain is going to do everything that it can do to keep you safe and certain in this moment. And so as a result, even the thought of doing something that is outside of your comfort zone triggers feelings that there could be potential danger around the corner. And even taking on new beliefs can do this. And this is why subconscious rewiring and subconscious, unconscious work deep within the subconscious mind is so important. And I hope I have a Ditch the Doubt bundle. DM me if you didn't get it and you want to get it, because that starts to help you rewire things at a subconscious level. And in my program, obviously, we just take that to another level. But taking on new beliefs, like, even if it's like, I am capable, taking on the new belief of like, I'm amazing and capable, it's not comfortable in the body. The body's like, no, bitch, you always thought you were shit and not capable. And that was safe because that kept you right where you are. So even taking on new beliefs can trigger the amygdala, can trigger all this, like your brain system to be like, no, stay, and flood you with anxiety and flood you with, sometimes, my self-doubt and imposter syndrome took me into a depression. So it can get real fucking real. Okay. When we want to express ourselves, take a chance, or do something that is new or unconventional, a wave of self-doubt often comes to warn us that we're getting out of our comfort zones. And like, I just want to take a moment right now. Think about that wave of self-doubt. You know what it feels like, right? I know what it feels like. Start to become familiar with that, because that's going to be really helpful to become an observer of like, holy shit. And I know it creeps like almost from my stomach up into my chest, and it feels like someone is like, ugh. And then like that wave, for me, it either comes up like that or it literally pushes me down. Like in another scenario, maybe this is like more like if it's anxious, it comes up. If it's like depression of like, I'll never amount to anything, which is where mine took me, and I couldn't take any action from that place because I was actually depressed. That feeling was just like pushing me down, down. So that's the wave of self-doubt. What does yours look like? So with the amygdala, this slight feeling of fear as in stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something you haven't done before, is then processed in the amygdala as stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and they're sent rippling through our body, reinforcing our initial thoughts of fear. So this is like fascinating shit, right? Because we have the self-doubt, it triggers the cortisol, and we have the self-doubt because the brain's like, hey, you need to fear getting out of your comfort zone. You're not going to be safe. And then after that, the hormones come of cortisol and adrenaline, and then we've got a real fucking reason to feel like shit, because now we actually feel like shit, like because the cortisol and adrenaline. And so it just reinforces that there's something to fear, right? If we didn't have, first of all, if we didn't have the belief in the first place that it was dangerous to step out of our comfort zone, we wouldn't even have the floodgates of the feelings in us. But now we've had that belief, and now on top of that, it's like stacking more reason to feel like there's something dangerous and that you should stay exactly where you are, which is really effective actually if there's a lion, right? Like first seeing the lion and being like, shit, I probably shouldn't go out there, and then getting that rush of emotions and like, I'm definitely not going out there. But like, it's a big fucking problem if we're trying to get to our next level of success. So the limbic system reacts so quickly. So this is another part of the body, is the limbic system. And it's part of like the frontal cortex, and it's responsible for conscious attention. And the limbic system reacts so quickly that it seems as if the fear response washes over us before we even have a chance to respond. Through our conscious attention, this is where it gets good. Through our conscious attention, the higher order thinking and decision-making part of our brain, the frontal cortex, this is where compassion resides. This is where conscious thinking, this is where logical thinking resides. If you have ADHD like me, ours is not always it's not always, give me 1 second. I am just at home and my brother's walked in. I'm busy on a call. Thank you. Appreciate it. Do I edit that out? I'm probably going to leave it in. Okay. So, I'm at my mom's house, by the way, in Cape Town. I usually live in San Francisco, but I'm visiting my mom, and my brother's 5 years older than me. My mom just like, we all live overseas, and then we just come into her house in Cape Town, and sometimes they're like 3 of us here. I'm one of 4 kids at the same time, and it's amazing and chaos, and we're all like in our 30s. It's brilliant. Anyway, so the frontal cortex can actually be activated to cut the root of fear at its source. Okay, and this is where it gets really good. This is where hypnosis gets good. This is where mindfulness is so important. I hate to say it, like I really hate to say it, but I spent 3 months in a Zen monastery as a Zen student studying Zen Buddhism. And like meditation, if you can, just practicing 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, it just gives you a little bit of space between when your amygdala is triggered and when all these emotions like flood in, and the adrenaline and the cortisol. So just being able to practice and teach your brain like, hey, we can create gaps and we can create space in between these responses. And in that space, you have better access to trigger your frontal cortex so that we can cut fear off at the source. Okay, so by becoming conscious of the fear response, so yeah, by becoming conscious of the fear response, we are already putting ourselves in a position of power. Okay, so you're in a position of power right now because I've just told you this and you've just learned this and you're becoming conscious. This is part of the process of making the unconscious or the subconscious conscious. Next time, you're going to look at your self-doubt and imposter syndrome triggers differently. I'm going to tell you now, don't expect it to go away. It's not supposed to go away. Don't feel let down if it doesn't disappear, but you are going to look at it differently. And that is going to put you in a much better position of power. As soon as we see that we are not the fear, we can start to use, I'm going to read that again. As soon as we see that we are not the fear, it's hormones, it's an outdated belief system, it's your brain just doing its job, we can start to use the frontal cortex and its power of analysis and contemplation, meditation, in order to choose a new response. So instead of reacting to our fear, we can consciously decide to take action from a space of courage. And this is why I said courage is so important, because in the beginning, when we are doing this work, you're not going to, I said, even when you're becoming conscious, you're not going to get rid of the triggers so quickly. But we are able in that moment to just choose differently, right? Choose courage. This is my invitation to you over the next however many days after you've watched this. Choose courage. And what about confidence? So this is what I was saying. Courage comes before confidence. Confidence is never going to show up in the beginning. Confidence is based on a proven track record of something you want to do or have done before. So this, like I said, the more times you choose courage and you choose to act anyway, you start to develop you start to trust yourself. Self-doubt also is like, I don't trust myself, right? It's doubting the self. So what is the antidote to that? Trusting the self. And when you're courageous, you start to build trust, and invertedly, that trust will build confidence. So what if you can be confident that you have courage? What if you can be confident that you have courage? We have 2 minutes left. So every time we choose to act despite our fears, we are reinforcing the courage and confidence muscles of our brain. We are literally rewiring our brain to weaken the pathways of fearful and self-critical thinking while strengthening the pathways of courageous behavior. So that is the amazing thing about our brains and neuroplasticity and the way our neural pathways work. And again, like going back to the basal ganglia, every time you reach for your phone, that is you like carving out. I want you to imagine like digging out, carving out a neural pathway in your brain. And when you wake up in the morning and you choose not to reach for your phone, you are eventually, you won't be like walking and carving that path. You'll be walking this path, and you'll be starting to make this path more strong. And this path will eventually, I don't know, like weeds will grow over it and shit like that. And it will fill itself back in, because the brain is like self-healing by default. So that is how this works. It's frigging amazing. Another effective way to reduce the use of these neural pathways is to look at our conscious and unconscious belief systems. And so my next email that's coming out to you, I've got another mini masterclass like this. If you love this, you can watch that one. And in that mini masterclass, I'm going to teach you about the subconscious and the unconscious mind, the same thing, kind of. So behind every bit of doubt, there is a belief. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not focused enough. I'm not hardworking enough. And so reframing these consciously and rewiring it at its root cause in the unconscious will lead us to making new beliefs, therefore new neural pathways, and strengthening these instead of doubtful ones. So what did we learn today? Okay, we learned that self-doubt and imposter syndrome is the result of an unconscious belief that if we step out of our comfort zone, we're going to die. That's basically what it is. When you were told at some age that you were not good enough, or when you decided that like your accomplishments in grade 7 were what were going to get you accepted and loved by your teachers and your parents, that was a survival based action. You were like, the only way that I can be successful or like that I can be loved is if I produce results. And so that belief is so hardcore in you. And that is why you feel imposter syndrome, because it's like, what is on the line? What's on the line is belonging, connection, and being loved, which are like the most intrinsic, like without those things, we die, like our spirit dies. And so well, not our spirit dies, our ego dies. And that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah. And so that belief is the thing that's tripping you up. And maybe when you were younger, you weren't extremely smart or whatever, and people around you told you were stupid, and then you started to take that on as your own belief, and it's not even true anymore. And you took it on because it was safe, right? Because maybe if you believed you were stupid, you would also get, you know, acceptance from around you, or you're like, yeah, I respect this teacher, I respect this parent, I'm going to take that on. We learned that repeated acts develop habits in the basal ganglia, and we start reacting the same way over and over again. And so we learned that we can just by choosing courage and acting differently, we can start to lessen those neural pathways and thin them out, and we can pave new neural pathways and thicken those. And then we learned that we can activate the prefrontal cortex by taking a pause and becoming conscious of the unconscious, sorry, excuse me, typo, becoming conscious of the unconscious beliefs that are igniting this trigger in the amygdala in the first place. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I absolutely love teaching this stuff, and keep an eye out on your email, because I have another mini masterclass coming on the unconscious mind and the conscious mind and how to rewire it. And I always love to give people a little step, like an action step. So I'll give you one in that one. But this week's action step is to see if you can catch yourself in that wave, and if you can pause, if you can breathe, and perhaps choose something different. Like, you don't have to like throw yourself into the deep end, but just choose something different. Okay, guys, I loved teaching this. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, stay golden.